Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For there is no difference between the Jew and the Gentile. For the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. Zola Levitt presents. Considering the times and seasons of our world today, here's Zola Levitt.
Shalom. Hello again. Look, you may have seen the movie Schindler's List. I loved it. I saw it several times. A very truthful exposition of Oskar Schindler, a Czechoslovakian businessman who had a wonderful love of Israel and the Jewish people, and he saved a lot of them, and his list is very famous. Well, the director, Steven Spielberg, is bringing it out again, this time on DVD. It's out already, and it has more testimonies than the original and so on. I have a photo here that shows Schindler as played by the actor Liam Neeson and Spielberg in a short scene from the film. Well, our guest on this program is a relative of Schindler's, Rosemary Schindler, a couple generations down the line, but you have the family memorabilia here from Oskar Schindler's life and a lot of stories to tell. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you have a Christian ministry, and you too attend to the Jewish people. It kind of goes with the family name.
Yes.
The most fascinating story in your biography was at Berkeley, where it related that Jewish students were reading the names of Holocaust victims, and this is something the Jews do. They read millions of names over a long period of time, but Palestinian students interrupted. Tell me what happened.
Yes, it was Yom HaShoah, memorial to the victims of Holocaust, and about 6 students were quietly reading through the names of the victims over a 24-hour period. But meanwhile, hundreds of pro-Palestinian students came and demonstrated loudly, chanting, waving flags, shouting insults at the students, and they broke into a nearby hall, Wheeler Hall, founded by Benjamin Wheeler, and forced a Palestinian flag into the Ark of Covenant, the Torah Ark, there in the hallway to desecrate it. We heard about it and came to the scene. My friend of mine brought a shofar and began to sound the alarm.
Wow, on a ram's horn.
Yes.
Yes.
But that instance really alarmed us parents, as my son was also attending that campus. And we began to form a unity group of Jewish parents and Christians to work together to stand and to educate our area, our radical Berkeley area, to the truth of Israel.
Oh, that's inspiring. And you've done quite a bit. There was a newspaper article about your ministry. It said your home, and one side of the dining room is this nice artifacts, the other side's the Holocaust and real things from it. That's almost frightening. You have here the Schindler Family Bible, the real one. How old is this Bible?
This Bible is from 1752. The Bible contained the family record and genealogy and was the keepsake of the family. This one has been rebound.
Golly.
The Heilige Schrift.
Oh, stunning, beautiful piece. And these are books, well, of course, Schindler's List, Schindler's Ark, a previous book. That's what it was called.
The original title was Schindler's Ark because the 2 factories that he had became an ark of refuge for the Jewish people. And this is why I've named our organization Schindler's Ark. Because in this hour, again, as we see anti-Semitism rising, there needs to be a refuge and those who will come and stand alongside the Jewish people so that this time we're not silent. And I work in the United States so that my nation will not be silent this time.
Yeah, and you are not Jewish.
No.
Schindler was not Jewish, at least to all outward appearances.
The background is German Catholic.
Yeah, and there's a genealogy you showed me that where you had to prove to the Nazi government by writing out generations and generations of your family that was completely free of Jews.
That's right.
And he did that?
Yes. This book here was the official book with the Nazi stamp.
Uh-huh.
And so everyone had to go to the churches and find their ancestors. And each generation was stamped as being Judenfrei, Jewish, free of Jewish blood, back 200 years. So every family, every generation had a book like this.
That's frightening. It's funny that the opposite's going on today. That is, Gentile people finding themselves going back in their families
We
and
want to
finding out
find
they're
Jewish
Jewish.
blood.
They want to find
Yes.
Jewish blood. This is absolutely sickening that people in the 20th century would act like this. And this is what, the Schindler family home?
This is the home in Czechoslovakia, which was a block home. It was a Nazi flag is out in front because they were officially to be watchmen for their block for the Nazi cause. And this is why when the American infantry came in 1945, they positioned themselves in this home. And the Americans then formed a friendship with the Schindler family and eventually brought them here to the United States, actually to Dallas in 1965.
Wasn't that wonderful?
Yes.
I'm delighted they brought them here to Dallas. She brought a CD. This is Rosemary Schindler, if you just tuned in. A relatively distant relative of Oskar Schindler, but a member of the family, and in possession of all this family memorabilia. And you brought a CD of modern Israel goings-on. Now, let me try to introduce this. I saw it. It brought me to tears right away because it's got some pretty sad people in it. It's got people who are lamenting victims of these awful bombings, the terrorism going on in Israel, what's called militancy in the American media. I think when you see their faces, you'll realize they aren't just combating militants. But it also has some actions of Christians in it. It's just a montage of pictures, and it's got some wonderful singing. And we were proud to show it to you. We'll put it on right now.
Another siren wails, just an ordinary day. Was it anyone I know? How can life go on this way? Hazak v'nit hazak. We sing the words out loud to strengthen one another. Together, standing proud. Hazak, hazak, we stand as one. Hazak, hazak, we must be strong. Hazak, hazak, we will go on. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Hazak v'nitchazak be'ad amenu u've'ad orei Elokeinu. Hazak v'nitchazak be'ad ameinu u'leman arei Elokeinu. Hazak, hazak, stand as one. Hazak, Be brave, be strong. One heart, one soul. We stand as one. We must be strong. We stand as one. We must be strong. We will go on. I say shalom. We stand as one. Together we are strong. Be strong. Be brave, be strong. We will go on. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. We must be strong. Be brave, be strong. We must be strong. We will go on. Yaseh shalom. We are one. We gotta be brave. We will go Shalom, Al
For a biblical perspective on what is happening in Israel and the Middle East, ask for Zola's free monthly newsletter, The Levitt Letter. Call toll-free 1-800-WONDERS. Zola's New Kingdom catalog describes his books, teaching tapes, and correspondence course. For Zola's free newsletter and catalog, please call 1-800-WONDERS.
Follow me.
And Jesus said unto them, Do not be afraid. Go tell my brethren to go into Galilee. There they will see me.
It strengthens our faith to know that Jesus walked on the water and that we can call out to him.
It makes the whole scriptures come to life.
Well, that's our trip to Israel, and when you go with us, by the way, you'll pass Oskar Schindler's grave. I visited it myself. He is buried on Mount Zion. It's a Christian cemetery, and I buried 2 passengers there over time. I'm smiling because they weren't killed there. There was no foul play. People simply meet the Lord somewhere, and I've taken 10,000 people there for 30 years, and sometimes, and of course, if that happens, we check the family and so on, but typically they want to be buried in Jerusalem. And we do that, and they lie with Oskar Schindler awaiting the rapture, and with other Christians. And it's a nice cemetery. There's Arab graves, Jewish graves, yes. German graves, etc. 2 Americans that I put there, so yes. But come to Israel with us. I'll get you back home all right. Or else, as with one of our pastors, if you meet the Lord at the summit of the Mount of Olives, we'll meet you in the second coming. So, well, getting back to these documents, let me just finish with those. There's so much to talk to you about. Really, Oskar Schindler was such a personality, and you ended up with all these documents from the family. This is a passport of Alois Schindler. Who was that?
The great uncle.
Okay. And, well, very official. I'll say one thing for the Nazis. They had beautiful handwriting, and they certainly filled every line of everything. Mm-hmm. This is what?
That is a hunting license.
Hunting license. Look at that. Look at the bureaucracy. It goes into a hunting license. Page after page of data here. And this document, that's another passport, looks like.
The
Or a
Arbeitsbook.
workbook.
The workbook.
Arbeitsbook. What's a workbook?
Very valuable, very necessary to survival and to survive during the war. That was your official documentation.
Showing you're a worker.
Yeah, you were a worker, and this is what the Jews so wanted to have in order to escape the ovens and the concentration camps at the early time of the year.
In other words, they were useful to the state, to the war effort, so
Yes.
they were spared.
Yes.
It's a real one. I mean, I'm holding somebody's workbook, somebody's life in my hand here. Okay. Gosh, that's touching. Now, at the end of the war, after Schindler finished helping the Jews helped Schindler, right?
Yes, they did. The part that the movie ends with is the greatest story of redemption. And as the Jews gave Oscar a ring inscribed with the words, "He who saves the life of one man saves the world entire," they made covenant with him that day. And Oscar took that very seriously. They also gave to Oscar and Emily their prison garb, their striped garments that protected them as they tried then to flee to Switzerland and to safety in the Americas. They knew at that time that the Russians would be coming and that they were game now for retaliation at the end of the war. So they also gave them a letter of recommendation in case they perhaps came into an American division, because they knew many Jews would be working with the Americans, that the field rabbis and other, someone else might be able to understand the Hebrew message that they wrote in honor and acceptance of Oscar. So all these items were necessary for their escape.
And then they took him to Israel yearly. They helped support him.
They took him to Argentina, actually, and he had a business there, and agriculture, and then 10 years later he came back to Germany. And from Germany he came to Israel as a great hero, and the Jews got together and had many celebrations welcoming him. And when he went back to Germany, he also experienced great anti-Semitism still in the people, as they hissed at him, as they spat on him, as they called him Jew kisser. And he just would stay in a little apartment in Frankfurt, for a few months out of the year, but then always return to his Schindler family, his Schindler Jews in Israel. And he did not get a pension from Germany for a long time. And so the Jews decided that they were going to each take a day's wage and send that money to Oscar and Emily to provide support for them for the rest of their lives. So there was an entire reciprocation. Oscar helped the Jews survive the Holocaust, and the Jews helped he and his family survive in their latter years. And they buried Oscar on Mount Zion because I feel he really saw the redemption of God's people.
Like lambs led to a slaughter, shadows of death we faced alone. Where was our God when we were dying? The awful silence from his heavenly throne. We wear the scars of being your chosen. We bear the shame on David's star. We are your people. battered, broken, hatred, murder, there we are. Innocence lost, our sons and daughters. Down in the valley lie victims unknown. Why then, O God, as we were crying, did you not hear us as we died alone? Alone.
How could they be anti-Semitic 10 years after the Holocaust? They murdered 6 million Jewish people.
Because, as my Jewish friends teach me, the root of anti-Semitism is the hating of God and the hating of His Torah and what identifies with God. And that's most in His Jewish people and also in us as Christians. And so we see in the world now, in this hour, another rise of anti-Semitism coming. And that's why I feel it's important to have organizations with continuing the message of the Schindler family, or organizations that will stand with the Jewish people, so this time we are not silent, and that this time we can really make a difference and bring honor as Christians to the name of our Messiah and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we made a series of programs recently on the Crusaders. And I was struck in Israel, and I knew something about the Crusades from college and so on, but we went around to the sites where they built these incredible European castles and where they fought with the local Arabs and Jews. And well, the Jews didn't fight, they just were assassinated, but the Arabs threw them out finally. But I was amazed that that was so terribly anti-Semitic to start with. They killed tens of thousands of Jews before they even left Europe. I'm staggered here. Israel's a Jewish country. Jesus was a Jewish Messiah.
Yes.
The church, to begin with, was entirely Jewish.
That's right.
How could they get it that far wrong? Or is it just hatred of God even though they're going on a crusade?
It must be. And I also began leading biblical tours, and I was appalled at Christian history from a new perspective.
Yeah.
And I saw in Spain the Inquisition, in Rome the ghettos, the Arch of Titus celebrating the removal of the holy articles from Jerusalem, declaring Rome to be the capital instead of Jerusalem. I went to Istanbul and Nicaea, declaring, when Constantine declared Constantinople to be the center of Christendom, no longer Jerusalem. And it's been throughout history, and it's on the rise again. And that's why it's so important that we stand with the Jewish people, because Israel is their mandated homeland. That is the place of refuge, and I feel it will be the place of refuge for those of us who love the God of Israel and His people and serve Him also in the days ahead.
Well, you're a real Schindler, I'll say that. You really take the Jewish side. Thank you. I thank you very much for bringing all this, I don't want to say wonderful memorabilia. Some of it is totally sickening, but it's what happened.
Yes, it is.
And it could happen again, couldn't it?
Yes, that's why Steven Spielberg is now at the 10th anniversary of his Shoah Foundation, releasing Schindler's List again, along with 77 personal testimonies of survivors. He actually recorded 50,000 testimonies of Holocaust survivors and has them in 5 video formats.
Right, before these people perish altogether, he's got them on. Now, just briefly, we only have a minute, but there's so much anti-Semitism also in the Arab world. It's just all the time without stopping in every country, never mind just Israel. You liken those to these Nazis?
Yes, I believe it's the same hatred of God.
Same
It's the
satanic
yes.
inspiration.
In fact, we know Hitler went to the Mufti in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, and they conspired during that time how to eliminate the Jews. It has been an ongoing problem.
And it's the Jews and then the Christians, you know.
Yes.
It's like this billboard in Ramallah, which we saw, capital of so-called Palestine. It said first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. True Christians are despised also by these despotic dictators that want to have, well, either a totally secular society like Hitler wanted, or an Islamic society like the Arabs want, that cannot tolerate Christians, and especially Jews, the outstanding evidence that God is still in charge and still running this world.
That's right.
You know. Thanks so much, Rosemary Schindler, for coming to us, bringing your valuable family memorabilia here, and thank you for your ministry to my people and all that you're doing. Really appreciate that.
It's a privilege and an honor. Thank you.
And let me do another thank you for the people watching us on PAX. You really came through for us. We made some appeals on the program because it's very difficult for us to maintain this rather expensive outreach. But I'm touched by the response, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. And also, Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Our offer on this program: Our Hands Are Stained with Blood. Authored by the Dean of the Messiah Biblical Institute, this book is the tragic story of the church and the Jewish people. This shocking book reveals the unspeakable horrors the Jewish people have suffered for ages at the hands of those who have considered themselves Christians, from the Crusaders to the Holocaust to present-day anti-Semitism. Our hands are stained with blood. And you may also call toll-free for our colorful monthly newsletter, The Levitt Letter. This free publication includes Bible lessons, insightful news commentary, Hebrew lessons, and personal notes from Zola. Call 1-800-WONDERS. That's 1-800-966-3377. Or write to Zola, Box 12268, Dallas, Texas 75225. You can also see our Levitt letters, TV programs, and national airing schedule at www.levitt.com. Please remember, Zola Levitt Ministries depends on tax-deductible donations from viewers like you.